Focus, Kickback Jacks for a Thursday. We were here on Saturday a few weeks back.
Yeah, we were.
Chris is here, and you're going to be where tomorrow night?
We are going to be in Asheville, North Carolina, AC Reynolds High School, the home of the Rockets.
What's the itinerary?
We're going to be leaving about 2 o'clock tomorrow, going up. I'm going to stop in Statesville and pick up Coach Jason Lippert. He's going to be sitting in for Coach Steele tomorrow night, and plan on getting there about 5 o'clock and setting everything up. Got to talk to some of the other broadcasters that are going to be there tomorrow night as well. Had really good conversations with them. Shared a little bit. They shared a little bit about AC Reynolds, and I shared a little bit about Southwest. Maybe they shared more than I did.
Could be good for you.
Yeah, maybe so, maybe not. Right.
I'll tell you what, though, a couple of years ago, AC Reynolds came down to Dudley and beat Dudley probably about 4 or 5 years ago. It was a wild Friday night. Dudley had a chance late in the game, got close, but didn't really have a qualified or maybe an established field goal kicker. Passed on the field goal, went for a 4th down. Reynolds took them out. I think Reynolds won to win the championship that year, too. So they've had, remember, Reynolds even back years ago playing Page at Page one Friday night, but you're playing Reynolds up there. Southwest on the road. What's the Southwest Guilford mindset and approach going in? What are these guys saying?
I just got to say one thing first. I love your memory. I wish I could visit your memory sometime.
I don't want to use too much.
You can jump back, go back 5 years, and tell me exactly how the game ended.
I could go in more detail, but I don't think I should. Crazy days. But yeah, going back to the Southwest mindset.
Southwest, I mean, they're going to do what they do, their defense. And those of you who do not know anything about Southwest Guilford, the story of the year is the defense.
I tell you a name I've been picking up on as I read, everywhere I read, and it wasn't even your work I was reading this time, but you mentioned a lot too, but I read somewhere this week, it might have been J.P. Mundy's article about John Oxley, the job that John Oxley did.
John Oxley has been, he's the one that I talked about the last time I was on your show, that he a candidate for a player of the year all around. I mean, unbelievable. But then I find out that Jalen Womack, number 2, actually got Piedmont Triad 3A Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
And I mean, and the way I look at that
says a lot about that defense.
Is that you can pick one of those 11. Any one of those 11 are very well deserving for that honor. It has been amazing to watch. Just a little bit so people know that they have not allowed a touchdown in the last 13 quarters. They've only allowed 3 touchdowns in the last 24 quarters. So that goes back to the 2 touchdowns in Mount Tabor, 1 touchdown in Dudley. And those are pretty incredible. They've given up 95 points this year total, and a lot of those was early in the year where they had the suspensions early on. They had some injuries. Nolan Johnson missing 5 games. Now they're back full strength. They've been back full strength for the past 3 games, and it's shown. I mean, the defense is unbelievable. And really, in my mind, is they really remind me of that 2000 Baltimore Ravens team, that it's more of the offense's job not to go out there and mess it up. Just don't go mess it up. So let the defense play, let the defense do, and then the defense is going to give you opportunities, and when they do, the offense have got to capitalize. They can't turn the ball over, give up the short field. I mean, if they keep them back in their own end the whole game, it's going to be a long night for Reynolds, especially Alex Flynn, the quarterback. I mean, they're throwing the ball. I've watched a lot of film this week. I've been cramming on. We only got 6 days to prepare, so
wait till next week.
I watched 5 of their games, so this week and talked to some folks, but they are about 80% pass, 20% run, and I think that plays right into Southwest's hands. Where the teams that they've had trouble against is teams that can run the football. So I think matchup-wise, Coach Rainey should be very happy with this matchup. There's nowhere to hide in the playoffs. So I mean, unless you happen to be Cuthbertson and Sun Valley and get that draw, you have the 12-13 playing each other in the second round, or Mount Tabor.
Don't forget the powerhouse South Caldwell.
Oh yeah, South Caldwell. Were they 2-9?
1-10. Number 2 seed, first round bye.
Unbelievable.
But back to Womack. I think the numbers of Womack: 56, 17, and 7. 56 tackles, 17 tackles for loss, and then he had like 6 or 7 sacks. Coach Rainey sent me those numbers today. So Womack impressive, Oxy impressive. How about the defensive backs? You say 80% pass by Reynolds. Who's going to be busy in that defensive back backfield.
Man,
I'm sure
you got the
Jaron Rainey's gonna be
guys,
busy.
Jaron Rainey and
He's gonna
Nolan
be
Johnson.
busy, yeah.
And the funny thing is that we don't say their names very often.
Yeah.
And we don't say their names very often because they don't get thrown at very often. They literally can shut down and that was the thing when Nolan Johnson was out. It was more of Jaron was able to close off half the field, but they could work the other half. Now that you got Nolan back and he's 100%, he had hand surgery, broke his hand in the Andrews game, had surgery, and he's 100%. Came back. Mount Tabor game was his first game back, and he shut down Blake Whiteheart, their big wide receiver there at Mount Tabor.
That's pretty good for him to come back from hand surgery. That's a very important part of what he uses and does the defensive backfield to make it back after that and come back full strength.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've talked to him personally, and he's healthy, and his attitude is awesome, and the whole team's attitude. And you expect them to kind of have a chip on their shoulder, especially when folks in the media, like at the News and Record, pick them to lose against AC Reynolds, but they really don't. They're not a chip on their shoulder. They're just going to go out. They're very businesslike, and they're going to keep their routine. I've talked to Coach Rainey, and they're going to be leaving about noon tomorrow, and they're going to go up. They got charter buses, so they're going to be comfortable. They've got I'm not going to disclose the warm-up location. They're going to stop at a location and warm up, and then they're taking box lunches. They're not going to any restaurants. They're doing it's kind of business as usual, the way they do things. And then I expect them to be at the stadium about 5:15, and the first group will come out and start warming. They warm up for a really long time. Southwest does. They warm up for a really long time. They'll be out there warm up for probably an hour and 15 minutes or so before the game starts.
What about Reynolds' schedule? What's their schedule been like? They have two losses?
One loss, and that was against Shelby. The only team that they played that is any good, and they walked the dog on them 38-6. So it wasn't even close. I mean, in that conference.
So Shelby beat them at 38-6.
Yes, 38-6. So that's the only team in their conference. That's that conference with Inca and Irwin and Tuscola and Asheville.
So Coach Pursley involved.
Coach Pursley,
okay.
yeah. And I talked to Coach Pursley a little bit about what they should do and what they can do and what you should. He doesn't have Jaron Rainey and Nolan Johnson as the corners, because they've got two wide receiver threats there. It's Patterson and St. Onge, and I had to get the pronunciation. It's Onge, St. Onge, and that St. Onge is like 1,300 yards receiving this year, and then they've got the quarterback's thrown for over 3,000 yards, Alex Flynn.
Impressive.
And then the other Patterson has like 800 yards or so, and then it drops way off. It's like 142, 112, all that. So with that being said, if you've got Jaron Rainey and Nolan Johnson that can check Patterson and St. Onge, now it's really going to put the pressure on those other contributors, and they're going to be going against very powerful linebackers that they're probably not used to seeing up there. Ruther Oxy, Austin Yarbray, Jalen Womack, Jalen Covington. I mean, and the list keeps right on coming. And
what about the quarterback spot for Southwest? What's the game idea? I won't say the game plan because I'm not giving away Coach Rainey's game plan at all. But what's the overall idea at quarterback?
It's Devin Flowers' offense.
Flowers is showed tomorrow night.
It's Devin Flowers' offense.
We're going to see a lot of rotation between Flowers, and Rainey.
We will see a little bit of Rainey.
Rotation.
Yeah, he'll bring him. Basically, he's resting Jaron on offense, so he can be 100% on defense.
But he's in there for a lot of those key special packages.
Yeah, he will come in, and he really uses him a lot as a decoy. You can go back and look at going back to the Dudley game that he'll put him out there, because when he gets out there on the field, the defense
they turn their attention toward him.
Right, and so he can use him a lot as a decoy too. And who knows? And you can't say enough about the season that I think they get overshadowed a little bit. But Tyree Graham and Cameron Smith, they have had an awesome year. Cameron Smith has really been getting it done from the running back position, and they run the I formation a lot. I would say probably 60% of the time you'll see I, but the thing that I really enjoy about it, and I call it the Rainey eye, because it can make you cry if you're not careful, for Coach Rainey. So he comes out in the I, and then they'll go the next play. They'll go right into 5 wide out of that. It's the same players. They can go I, 5 wide, 4 wide with a sidecar. Shift on either side, go into pistol out of it, and so it's the same group of kids, and they can move them around without having to substitute and run tempo out of it. So it's really nice to see a change, or I guess it would be an elaboration on the theme of the I formation.
What about Coach Rainey? We talked with Coach Robertson direct. He's the head coach of Eastern Guilford. Got his direct talk. What about Coach Rainey? What have you learned about him this year?
Man,
as a coach
tell you what,
and
Andy,
as an individual?
I have been it has been an absolute pleasure, and I have been so the things. Would you
classify him as intense or just even keel?
He's a disciplinarian. I didn't really realize that going in, but he is a disciplinarian. It is the Cowboys way, and they have rules and they have regulations, and there are consequences to your actions, good or bad.
We've learned that early in the season,
and he has done it. And he has done it on every level, on the JV level. If it happens to cost the team a game, so be it. That's the way it's going to be. But it's reflective on their actions, and really by this point in the season, they have really bought into it, and I just have been really impressed with him, not just as a coach, but as a human being as well. I mean, he's just a great individual, a great role model.
They've had a good year. The record now 9-3.
They are 9-3. Yep.
And you mentioned Ashford Reynolds 11-1.
11-1.
11-1.
Right.
What about the game last Friday night at Statesville, or versus Statesville at Southwest Guilford?
At the ranch. Yep.
Statesville comes in. Did you happen to see it all any time during that game, or notice Coach Scott Young?
I did.
Yeah.
I actually saw him before the game.
Kind of curious about that because he was with Statesville and passed away yesterday, and a big loss to the statewide coaching community.
And that has an impact on my family as well, that we're good friends on that same staff with him at Statesville earlier in the year, and that it's a crushing blow. I mean, Coach Young was, just a great individual. I mean, an intense football coach, a great football mind, but a great person too, and a real leader and a role model in his community. My wife graduated from West Rowan, where he won the state championships.
Yeah, he won 3 straight back about 8, 9, and 10.
Which was a little bit after she graduated, so the football team was not very good when she went there.
Right, but when he really turned it around,
sure. She did go out and buy the state championship sweatshirts and the hoodies and stuff.
Show some support, but he was the head coach at Charlotte Independence, but never coached a game there.
That's right.
And let him go.
Yeah.
And then he resurfaced at Statesville. Just amazing. He kind of reminds me in some ways in his appearance, and I'd seen him several times through the Charlotte Observer website, reading stories outside the area, and I'd see Coach Young. I'd say, he reminds me of somebody I thought today. I said, reminds me of Coach Robertson. Got that same structure, same build.
Right.
Got the hair texture, that type thing. Very similar look. And again,
and I tell you what, if Coach Doug keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to have some rings of his own as well.
Thinking the same thing.
Yeah, it was
exactly.
He was real close last year. We got to cover Eastern Guilford and Weddington the state championship, and it was really a dream come true for me to be able to call a game in that sort of environment in a stadium like that, and always be very thankful for Eastern Guilford and what they were able to do for us.
What about that this week? The other Guilford County teams. Joe Sierra's got it at 2-2. How do you got the balance and power among the 4 teams remaining?
I think they go. I think all 4 of them win. I think the underestimation, I'll go ahead and pick our game, the Southwest Guilford game. I'm not like Kirk Herbstreit. I'll actually pick a game I'm calling. Everybody knows I'm rooting for Southwest there, and I think we're going to see a lot more of the same of what we saw last week, where that defense just puts so much pressure and forces turnovers, and the offense being able to capitalize when they get the opportunity. So then the Eastern Guilford D.H. Conley game, I haven't seen D.H. Conley. I can look at all those numbers, but I do know a lot of those teams that Conley plays, and a lot of those numbers came against teams that were very weak teams. Dudley going down to New Hanover, I just had enough to look at some of the stats and stuff like that. I just believe at this point that Coach Davis has those guys where it's a next man up sort. I was really impressed in the Mount Tabor Piper game that with Nashawn White. He is really going to be. I saw him play in the JV game, the Southwest Dudley JV game, and I was very impressed with him in that game. And then he happens to step in after Tariq Rush dislocates his elbow and did really well in the second half. And
it's a whole new game for Dudley. You got 3 running backs, 4 running backs, and set up Simpson. Those guys loosen things up. They go in there and they cut to the defense and kind of open some spaces, and they get used to those little guys and different looking guys coming through. Here goes Simpson. He'll run off for about 30 or 40 yards.
Oh, yeah.
So it helps his game a ton.
G is a fantastic talent. I mean, he has that ability. The one knock I'll have on him, he's never won the big game.
Yeah.
And
it seems like this year, for some reason, as time goes on, it seems like Dudley, Coach Davis is kind of smart. He brought him along gradually. You look at his numbers, they aren't huge, but they're steadily growing numbers as the season gets deeper and deeper. Yeah.
So we'll see. This is the biggest game in G. Simpson's high school career, and I'm sure he doesn't want it to be his last one.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because if Dudley is fortunate enough to beat New Hanover, and then if Cape Fear can knock off Lee County, and Cape Fear just got their quarterback back, he's been gone for a good while.
Yeah.
He's back full strength as in the championship game last year. Then you got Cleveland versus Clayton. Clayton the higher seed, Cleveland number 8, but Cleveland just got their quarterback back.
Yeah.
He didn't play against Clayton when they first met, 35-17 Clayton. So if Cleveland can beat Clayton, Cleveland will come hopefully Eastern Guilford next week. And if Dudley's successful, if Cape Fear is successful, Cape Fear will come to Dudley next week. Dudley beats Cape Fear, Eastern Guilford beats Cleveland, Eastern Guilford versus Dudley in week 4, and who knows what's going to be coming on Christmas stocking.
On the other side, you could have Mount Tabor versus Southwest Guilford in the regional finals.
That would be a crazy. That'd be the best way to go, really.
Are you kidding me? That would be absolutely. And I can tell you this: there is a bunch of kids over in Kelly Green and Black that would love to get their hands on Mount Tabor again.
I'm sure they
after
would.
That crazy ending to that game.
But you got to go on 4-0 Guilford County tomorrow night.
I do. I think they can do it. It's not. There is absolutely no question about the talent, and I just have a question on the teams that these 11-1s. I mean, New Hanover, the only team that they've really played is Hoggard, and Hoggard beat the doors off of them. And Hoggard's a 4A school. They're another split conference.
Yeah, New Hanover's a team that dropped down from 4A to 3A this year.
Right.
There are a ton of those around right now.
Yeah.
Going to be interesting. It's going to be kind of neat to see what Eastern Guilford does against this well-known quarterback, this highly touted quarterback. And then you got Southwest going on the road, got a pretty good long road trip. Dudley, pretty long road trip. You got Page at home. Page has really got to be ready tomorrow night because they've had that week off. Yeah. They've had plenty of time to think about it. They just got to make sure.
We talked to Coach Roffles about that, and he said, no, we kind of look at it that it'll give us some time to work on some stuff. I mean, they had 2 weeks to prepare, and I think that it's a good break for him. And he seemed to be very confident when we talked to him during the bracket show. So, we got to kind of go with that and say that, hey, the week off. I know if it was me, I wouldn't want the week off.
Right.
Yeah.
He's trying to approach like it's an open week in his schedule.
Yeah.
Put it into a schedule like that. But I'll tell you what, a week away, that's pretty tough. You guys get rusty, no doubt about that. The first part of the game is to be crucial for Page to get that rust off as quick as they can and get rolling.
Right.
I wouldn't mind seeing them keep it on the ground early in that game.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they won the coin toss if they elected to receive.
Yeah.
Get their offense out there and get them going early. Because that defense is what's going to get Page there. But that offense, I mean, if you can't score, you can't win.
So in some ways, what you're saying there maybe be kind of comparable for Page. It's kind of like Southwest Guilford then.
It is.
Yeah.
But I think that Page, they have the ability. They've got a lot more weapons than Southwest does on offense.
Offense, right.
And so that's the biggest difference, that they can really stretch it out and go down the field. And we saw that some in the Dudley game, and they kind of went away from it. But it's because Dudley was putting so much pressure up the middle. And I think that if they stretch it out and really sling the ball around, they're going to surprise them early and then let that defense just lock in and shut down.
Just got to make sure all our teams in Guilford County take care of business, and these marquee players coming in. I think from the standpoint of Holt Naylors, he's number 12. Everybody on that team from Eastern Guilford's got to know that number. We got to get that number 12. We got to get that guy. Same with Page, the running back body from Providence. Got to get that guy's number. Got to be on that guy from the get-go. And I'm sure those linebackers from Page are already into that in a big way.
Just so folks that are listening to the broadcast tomorrow night, the Southwest Guilford AC Reynolds game, I have had this feeling all year that Coach Rainey has been saving some stuff offensively. He has really been, in some of the blowout games late in the season, he's just been putting his JV guys in and letting, second string, third string guys get some time. Don't be surprised if we see them come out and do something radically different than what and I think that it's something he's been preparing for. So, but he's yet to unleash the dog, but I see they've got weapons and they have the ability to do it. We just haven't seen them do it.
And you look at the high school games, and we got the pro game tonight. We got the Steelers and the Titans.
Right.
Tennessee is 6-3, Pittsburgh 7-2. Who do you favor in that game tonight?
I think Steelers got it. Yeah, Steelers got it tonight. And even though I started Marcus Mariota in my fantasy team, it's because I had no choice. Injuries are killing me. But I think that the Titans are definitely moving in the right direction, but the Steelers have way too many weapons.
What about those Steelers teams? We talked about this with Joe some about tonight's distant replay. 1970 Steelers, best group of football team assembled back in that day. You look back at all those guys' positions.
One thing that, because I work with a lot of Steeler fans and
you're
a lot
West Virginia man too.
I did my 7 years of forced incarceration. Yes, I went to junior high and high school in Beckley, West Virginia.
So you weren't too far away from.
Everybody up there is Steeler fans. But one of the things that's interesting that if you go back, that from the founding, I think it's like 1934 when the Steelers were founded, all the way up to 1968, they were the losingest team in football.
That's right.
And their first round draft pick, you had Mean Joe Green in 68, Franco Harris in 69, Terry Bradshaw in 70, and Lynn Swann in 71. Well, that's the core of your Super Bowl years.
Yeah, and you got Terry Hanratty back in the late 60s too out of Notre Dame, and kind of got that started before Bradshaw took over. Right. And you mentioned Mean Joe Green, L.C. Greenwood. You got White up there. You also got
is that Lambert?
Yep, Jack Lambert, Jack
Lambert.
Ham, and Andy Russell. Best group of linebackers, maybe at least for most times assembled anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, and you got Mel Blunt, who could kill people at defensive back. Donnie Shell. I mean, you could go on and on. You mentioned Rocky Blyer, Franco Harris. I mean, Stallworth and Swan is just like John Taylor and Jerry Rice.
I mean, Lynn Swann was a thing of beauty. I mean, you're talking about when I was a kid and, sneaking out to watch Monday Night Football, because it's too late and I got to be in bed and sitting there watching. And, the Steelers were all the rage. And, of course, I was not a Steelers fan. So
who'd you pull for?
I'm a Lions fan.
That's right. You told us about that one time.
Yes, I'm sadomasochistic. Yeah. I like pain.
You go back to the days of Alex Karras back in that.
But not quite that late. I'm more of the original number 20 was Billy Sims.
Landry,
it was Billy Sims.
Yeah.
I was more when Sims came in. So, like when you say going back to 70, I was born in 71. So
you remember Eddie Murray back in the days?
Oh,
all
yeah.
those kicks.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
And then, of course, when Barry Sanders came in, then you had people that finally started caring about Lions football. But I've been a fan my whole life. I was introduced very early. I had two uncles that fought over if I was going to be a Baltimore Colts fan or a Detroit Lions fan, and my uncle, who was the Lions fan, won. So I do have pictures of me when I'm 5 years old underneath the Christmas tree wearing Baltimore Colts pajamas. So they do exist somewhere.
And you quickly switched those over to the Lions.
Yeah, so that was the only picture of wearing anything other than Lion stuff. Yeah.
So you're not lying when you tell us this right now. Tomorrow night, Southwest Guilford's going to win that game when they go to AC Reynolds in Nashville.
Yes.
And the Cowboys are in good shape going into that game.
And I'm going to give my total points for the game, and I've been our lucky number total points because every closest without going over, I'm going to say 31 total points for the game. Every time I've called 31, they've come in at like 31, 33, something like that. And they done, like I called 31 at the Ben Smith game, Ben L. Smith, and it was 31-0. So that's.
I'm gonna let you go. One more thing from you. Line them up. Who has the best chance to win tomorrow night out of all the teams? The four. We only got four.
Yeah. Of course, you would have to say that Page would.
Let's rank them. Page. Okay.
Yeah, Page would be one, and then I would say. Man, I wish I would have watched some film on D.H. Conley, but I mean, Eastern Guilford, I got to go with those cats for number 2 with the Wildcats, and then I'll go Southwest would be the 3rd most likely, and then Dudley the 4th most likely. Even though I said that I think all 4 will win.
Good call. Good call.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, you got to get home, get a few final touches done.
Yeah, man.
You're off tomorrow from work, so you got the full day. Nothing but football.
Yeah, nothing but football. Yeah, nothing but driving down. Hillary will probably drive, and I'll be on the phone and texting and looking up stats and all that stuff. And can't say enough how much we appreciate everything that you do for us at Greensboro Sports Radio 2 and allowing us to do this. We just had last week for the Statesville game was our 50th broadcast.
Wow.
Greensboro Sports Radio 2 had its 50th birthday.
It's a lot of ball games.
So, hey, for us, we're only about 2,974 behind you, but we're more. 24,700.
We've only got one game to think about. That's tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
That's tomorrow.
Next one up.
It's been a great season, and we'll hope it doesn't end. And if it does end for Southwest, we'll look around and see who's still there.
See what's left.
If the folks still want to listen to us call a game, we'll go out there and do another one.
Chris, good luck tomorrow.
Thank you, Andy.
Have a good trip.